the internet has become the greatest organized crime opportunity in history. There's all sort of grifts going on. This is about Michael Franzese, the popular, I guess he considers himself some type of social commentator, some right-wing person, but he's a hardcore criminal.
Michael has a massive ego. He wants to be recognized. He craves recognition and fame, and I think that's a large part of it.
And as for how Franzese walked away from the mob and into the Hollywood sunset, McDonald has a theory about that too.
Well, it's possible that Michael is so Machiavellian and has worked out such a sort of clever deal with the mob that they have permitted him to testify against them, provide information, background information, intelligence information. Perhaps he worked it out that he pays, the bosses of all the families, $10 million, every 6 months. And he's doing it on the installment plan to ensure that they're good faith.
Meanwhile, Michael Franzese is leading the good life. Some people think it's a miracle he's alive to talk about it. He and Cammie think it's a miracle too. Literally, a miracle.
I'm committed, and I believe very strongly in God right now.
I would compare them to a pack of jackals.
These men, who asked that their identities be concealed, say their wholesale gasoline business was taken over by Mafia thugs who showed up and threatened to kill them if they wouldn't do business the way the mob wanted them to.
Carrying on like this, waving his hands around and going, God damn, it's gonna be done my way. I'm the boss around here. I see what goes on around here.
Authorities say Franzese and other organized crime figures, in a very short period of time, have taken over or set up their own storage terminals, tanker truck fleets, wholesalers, jobbers, a whole network, everything necessary to move gasoline under mob rule from the refinery to the corner gas station.
He owned a huge estate, car dealerships, restaurants, and he owned an oil business.
We were gasoline wholesalers, as wholesalers responsible for collecting the tax on every gallon of gas that we sold. We collected the tax and didn't pay for it.
What was Michael Franzese's cut of that,
Michael's cut of that was anywhere from $4 to $5.
$4 to $5 million
in
a week?
Cash a week.
Authorities say the Mafia first moved into the gasoline business in New York and is now active in at least 12 other states. By some estimates, the loss in gasoline taxes is as much as $1 billion.
That's right, $1 billion. So this guy was supposed to pay $14 million in fines. At the time this all happened, he didn't give the government much.
He was supposed to pay the government $14 million. He hasn't paid anything near $14 million.
That's right.
There's not a single mafioso behind bars because of anything Michael Franzese told you. Is that correct?
Well, there are people who are in prison based on the information that Michael provided.
But no mafia types.
Yeah, that's not, well, there's at least one. Frank Campione, who was a chauffeur for his father.
A chauffeur and a Chicago agent who wasn't even in the mob. He was also supposed to give the government his Long Island estate, but it's not in his name, and the government has yet to collect. And he signed over the profits from a movie to the government, but there are no profits. The government claims it's not finished with him. Did Michael Franzese, Mafia family man, completely outmaneuver his Uncle Sam?
I think the deal was fair for the both of us. It accomplished what I wanted to accomplish to a great degree, and I think that the government should look at it as a real victory.
Is he laundering money left over from Daddy stole from the American public back in the 80s?
We pray for those who have stooped below their best.
Michael Franzese has a lot to pray for. Before he was born again, he was a family man. The family was the Colombo crime family, and Michael Franzese was a captain, one of the richest and most powerful men in the mob.
He walked the razor's edge apparently successfully. He did not put any mobsters in prison. He did testify against a crooked sports agent named Norby Walters. Norby Walters went to prison in part because of Franzese, but then he got his conviction overturned. Now, we know that Michael Franzese's father, Sonny, was a, old school mafia, blah, blah, blah. Well, his father was a very important and powerful mafioso who had infiltrated, or let me not say infiltrated, had been part of the setting up of the pornographic film industry. So here we have this Christian who grew up living in the lap of luxury off money from the early Pino films. Also, Texas Chainsaw, MASS Acre was his father's work. And this ridiculous movie that Franzese was producing before he got indicted, Heart of the City, or Sammy Davis Jr. in a movie about breakdancing and hip-hop.
This is a private screening for members of the cast and backers of a yet-to-be-released movie called Cry of the City. The movie stars Sammy Davis Jr. and is about life in the ghetto and breakdancing. The screening was part of a big rap party in Florida last month to celebrate the wrap-up of filming on location in the Miami area.
This is where it all started.
It was a big event for the two executive producers of the movie, Jerry Zimmerman and Michael Franzese.
Was that a real movie? Were they really going to put that out? Or was it money laundering? Now, Franzese currently supposedly has well, no, he doesn't supposedly. There's franchising opportunities for something called Slices Pizza. I guess he has a few of them. I don't know where they're open at. Sounds like more money laundering. Like, how does this guy have the money to have a pizza chain or to have a pizza system that he'll franchise? He has Franzese Wines. Where is this money coming from? This guy was supposed to have turned over all his money in the 80s to the feds, but the feds let you keep money. They cut that guy the sweetheart deal of the century. You have to think that he might only got on the stand about Norby Walters, but he had to have given them something else, or maybe they were just so desperate to stop the gas racket. And the gas thing he did wasn't just, they always make, these mob guys always make their crimes sound like, oh, well, you know, we were just skimming a little here, like as if, you know, they're the classic victimless crime. Well, no. If the government isn't receiving the money from the gas tax it's expecting, well, that pays for your kids' school books. And let me tell you something. As a kid who went to a public school system in Detroit in the 80s, when we literally frequently would not be issued a textbook. I had many, many classes where we never got a book. Detroit Public Schools, ripe with graft. That ain't Michael Franzese, but these businessmen and these scumbag Italian mobsters who are the worst criminals to ever walk in the United States. Believe me. Because they infiltrate legal stuff and they lean on regular people and they steal from us all. His gas thing was truly a classic mafia shadow government where they had their own oil storage, gasoline storage, their own trucks. They were subverting the whole tax system. It wasn't just some slickery with the pen and a pad.
The mob goes where the money is, and over the years it has moved into legitimate businesses as well as drugs and vice.
Mob-controlled gasoline companies, often working in the middle of the night, sell and deliver one tanker load after another, and just don't pay the federal and state gasoline taxes they're supposed to. It is a bonanza for the mob. In New York State, for example, the taxes due on just one 8,000-gallon tanker load of regular gasoline come to $2,128. And authorities say mob gasoline companies have for years made tens of thousands of tanker runs without paying taxes and without getting caught.
And the motorist will come here.
Because they don't pay gasoline taxes, the mob sells gasoline to gas stations at prices 3 to 4 cents a gallon lower than legitimate dealers can offer. And these men say even local dealers under contract to major oil companies wanted secret deliveries of the mob's cheap gasoline.
We had Mobil stations, we had Texaco stations, we had Chevron stations, we had Shell stations.
Tom Plattis, the president of Highway Oil, one of the country's largest
like
chains.
I said 5 years ago, me talking about the mafia and the gasoline business would have been absolutely a joke. But it's gotten serious where the point that it could very easily happen.
That they could move in and take over?
They could take over a substantial portion of it.
$1 billion estimated. Where'd Franzese's money go? I mean, Franzese, I'm sure, has kicked a lot of it upstairs. He even brags about now making $5 million a month himself. Where did it all go? This is back in the early 80s. I say he still had some. He's had some all along. In 91, he caught on to the born-again grift. And remember, the modern Catholic Church was born on the battlefield. When Constantine, the Roman emperor, was losing a battle and saw a cross in the sky, and this is about 400 AD, Christianity had been growing in the Roman Empire. Constantine is who made it the official religion of the Roman Empire, and of course he won the battle. So, not Christianity itself, but the Catholic Church was born on the battlefield in the sense of Roman emperor accepted Jesus during a battle, which, I mean, well, I have to explain to you I don't know if irony is not even the word, the dark hypocrisy of that, and the dark hypocrisy of Michael Franzese, who claims to be born again, and yet he won't admit that he killed anybody. How'd you get to be a made man?
You believe Michael Franzese has killed at least once?
Yes, and probably more. He did what he had to do.
I'm no member of the mob, but I'm a crime expert. The Mafia is not my primary expertise, but the mob had closed the books for about 20 years in the 50s, because problems in the 50s, and they reopened them in the 70s, and that's when Franzese got made. I don't know of anyone of that era that ever didn't have to murkify anybody to get made. Now, nowadays, right, recently, there's probably guys getting made who don't have to do that, but back then now, he's never been charged with anything, but I'm just going to repeat some stuff from newspaper articles. Larry Champagne Carrazza, a Brooklyn embalmer with a taste for the good life, including his trademark champagne, was once Michael Franzese's best friend. They drank together and gambled in Vegas together. Carrazza was the godfather of 3 of Franzese's children, and he was the godfather of one of Carrozza's. But in 1983, Franzese learned that Carrozza, a married man, was having an affair with Franzese's sister and had become involved with DR drugs. Franzese said the mob had discovered both and had ordered Carrazza's assassination. In Franzese's book, he always has a self-serving explanation. He says he tried to warn his friend, but his friend ignored the warning, and Carrazza's body was found on May 20th, 1983. He'd been with a single bullet behind the right ear. That's what those guys do. Your best friend takes you out. He sits behind you in the car. We've all seen the movies because the movies are based on real stories. That's what they do. The Mafia stabs you in the back. That's who they are. There was no sign of a struggle. Police believe he was killed by someone he knew and trusted. So your best friend tells you the mob is hunting you. Who are you going to let get behind you? Maybe the guy, your best friend who warned you. Now, I'm just repeating a news story. This ain't libel. There's definitely a violent side to Franzese, and he definitely had the motive and the opportunity to do that killing. That's what an FBI agent said. It was widely believed among law enforcement officials and Mafia insiders that Michael killed his friend upon his father's orders.
His father, Sonny, was Mafia royalty.
It looks really tough there.
Sonny was also a captain in the Colombo crime family.
This is a shot during the bank robbery trial.
Until he was sentenced to 50 years in prison for conspiracy to rob banks.
When I first became a part of it, I was proud of the association. I felt good about being a part again of something that my father was so much a part of. I was committed to being a good soldier.
Sonny Franzese, hardcore guy, wouldn't have liked someone mistreating his daughter or whatever. So Franzese's deal with the government, he pled guilty to 2 of the federal charges, and he had 65 state counts in Florida. He pled guilty to all of those. He agreed to testify against Norby Walters, a sports agent who was charged with illegally signing college athletes.
The fraud and racketeering trial of sports agents Norby Walters and Lloyd Bloom has revealed dramatic allegations of mob involvement in college athletics. Confessed organized crime captain Michael Franzsese testified he paid $50,000 cash to become a silent partner in the agency that once represented 44 potential professional football and basketball stars. Bloom and Walters say they broke no laws when they gave thousands of dollars in gifts and loans to top college players, convincing them to secretly hire the agents months before college rules allow. The agents targeted young black stars like the University of Iowa's running back Ronnie Harmon. With his father present, Harmon recorded a tape as Walters offered a big loan and monthly payments in exchange for the right to a percentage of Harmon's future pro earnings.
Now you have to send Ronnie 50 or 100 a month, and he said, I go find the money. He now is picking up the money from me. Yeah. And we also took it together. He has to worry about being caught.
The agents say they just found a niche in a corrupt system that exploits players for their athletic abilities. Harmon, for example, slid by with a D average, taking classes like billiards and watercoloring, finally dropping out after he led his school to the Rose Bowl. Franzese, nicknamed the Yuppie Don, told jurors he never threatened players, but did provide the muscle that helped Walters prosper in the music business. Franzese says he tried and failed to control the Jackson 5's 1981 tour, but claims his reputation in New York's Colombo crime family was enough to convince Dionne Warwick's manager not to fire Walters.
Within weeks of testifying against Walters, Franzese was freed from prison, having served less than 4 years. He did go back in 1991 for probation violation, failing to file income tax for the years that he was in prison and improperly endorsing a check. Franzese testified in one other trial. A janitor charged with leaking info to him from a grand jury investigation. So as a mobster, he had corrupted a member of a grand jury, and then to get out of trouble, he tells on the very guy he corrupted. A janitor. Real stand-up guy. And now he's on YouTube, and he's a political activist. He's complaining about immigrants. You know what the bad immigrants were? Your family. Became arch villains. Your father helped form the porn industry.
Authorities say the power behind Franzese and Zimmerman in the movie business is Michael Franzese's father, John Sonny Franzese, one of the top mafia bosses in the country, who was released from prison just last month and met at the prison gate by his son Michael. Federal authorities say Michael Franzese is not the first member of his father's crime family to go into the motion picture business. The elder Franzese and his mob associates were the men behind the distribution of a number of sex and violence films, including Deep Throat and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which made millions for the mob.
You took school books and everything off of the desk of poor New York children by stealing the gas tax. And where's all the money? Pay your fine. Come clean. Be washed in the blood of Jesus. The truth shall set you free. You had that multi-level marketer, Paul David Bett, and build you up, birds of a feather, right? He treated you like a hot shot, and now you're making money on YouTube. I normally don't talk negatively. I'm kind of neutral with the criminals because most people I cover did things when they were young or come from a deprived background, but the mobsters I've interacted with and the stuff I know, these are adult. These aren't 23-year-olds. These are grown men doing elaborate, sophisticated crimes over long periods of time. And you just have to ask yourself, Michael Franzese, as you can even see in these old interviews, he was always living comfortable in a big house. Where was the punishment? He stole a lot of money. Everyone else that got made killed somebody, though he won't admit it. and now he's on YouTube hawking his stuff. I'm sure he gets paid to speak at all these churches. Well, I'm not sure. I don't know. I would imagine he gets some form of compensation. And that was a smart move. Criminals and killers are often very superstitious. So the Mafia, you know, the more Christian he gets, you know, they probably get superstitious about killing him if they were even thinking about killing him.
It's possible that Michael is so Machiavellian and has worked out such a sort of clever deal with the mob that they have permitted him to testify against them, provide information, background information, intelligence information. Perhaps he worked it out that he pays, you know, the bosses of all the families, you know, $10 million, you know, every 6 months. And he's doing it on the installment plan to ensure that they're good faith.
Now, as you can see, that FBI or that prosecutor thinks Franzese might have made so much money for them. He didn't testify against any Mafia guys, a janitor and a sports agent who got out. And he probably turned over a bunch of money. He helped him break the gas thing.
Carrying on like this, waving his hands around and going, God damn, it's gonna be done my way. I'm the boss around here. I say what goes on around here. It's gonna be done my way.
As you can see from that regular hardworking businessman, when guys like Franzese come in, it's with threats. You're gonna do what they say. It's not all slickery and trickery and, oh, we're just a whiz with numbers and I figured out, and the government, and that's why they like these right-wing politics. Listen, you believe that there should be less taxes and government's wasteful and too big? I agree. But don't let a mobster act like him stealing the money. Oh, well, the government does it anyways. This is craziness. Now, interestingly, Michael Franzese's Christian conversion came from, he met his wife on the set. She was a dancer in the Sammy Davis starred film Knights of the City about breakdancing. I guess she was a hip-hop breakdancer. I don't know if he's still married to her.
At the height of his Mafia power, Michael Franzese produced B movies, including this one, where he met his second wife, Cammie. She's the dancer in blue.
On location in Miami with the movie Cry of the City, Michael Franzese was accepted as a big-time Hollywood producer.
But yeah, so there's Michael Franzese. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. And I remember they tried to get me to interview that crooked cop, Michael Dowd, from the 75th Precinct, who was an adult male, white male, signed up to work in the worst precinct in New York, East New York, and he went around robbing everybody from the start and snorting cocaine in his car, and did a little prison time, and then they soft white underbelly and all the rest interview him, and anyone that runs with crooked cops, mafia informants. And I'm not someone who comes in here talking about snitching. I don't really care about all this stuff. But like crooked cops and adult men who have been criminals all their life and then work a real sweetheart deal. And then now they're still out here making money, save me the bull, talking about who he killed. These are total narcissists. That's one thing I've learned in investigating large criminals of all sorts. More than anything, a lot of them are extreme narcissists. And I don't think Jesus approves of extreme narcissism. So maybe fake Franzese will have a true conversion and come clean one day and bring honor to his family's name for once. Al Prophet.
The FBI says you're a member of the Colombo Mafia family.
Like I said, the FBI can allege and say whatever they like. They've been doing it for many, many years. But what could I say? That's the FBI. That's law enforcement.
But 2 weeks later, Michael Franzese's career as a movie producer was interrupted, and he was in handcuffs, arrested by the FBI on racketeering charges, one of 14 people charged in an alleged mafia loan sharking and strong-arm operation that invested mob money in legitimate businesses.